Hello, everyone. Fred just informed me that this is the last panel of GSV, and also that they saved the most charming, intelligent, and best-looking people for the last panel. So you are all very welcome. Thank you for being here on the future of enterprise learning. I will do some quick introductions, and then we're going to jump right to it because I think 40 minutes is going to go incredibly fast. As you go to my left here, we have Rebecca Scales. Rebecca is the learning architect and principal program manager for engineering, learning, and development at Expedia. Next to Rebecca, we have Mike Smith. Mike Smith is the John H. Finley Professor of Engineering and Applied Sciences at Harvard and also the former Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. And then next to Mike, we have Sergey. Sergey is the founder of Gradescope and of Full Stack Deep Learning and is now working on, quote, something new. So we may try to figure out what that is over the course of the time here. So welcome and thank you all for being a part of the panel here today. So let's jump right in. Rebecca, you have a responsibility of both helping employees at Expedia thrive and develop, but also looking at what the needs of Expedia are going to be over the next decade on the tech side and figuring out how you build those on the internal side of it. There's been a lot of talk about the need for, skills taxonomy, skills development. Could you talk a little bit about what you do, but also there's been a lot of criticism of the industry as a whole is failing to move forward because there isn't a shared taxonomy. So how do you approach this at Expedia, and do you have optimism that in the next decade we're going to get to a shared taxonomy that people can actually move through to advance in their careers?
I certainly hope so, and I do have hope. So one of the things that we've done at Expedia is we've done a lot thinking about engineers and data scientists and analysts. We've been very careful to think through what exactly they need, because in 10 years, we don't know what they need in 10 years, right? Technology moves so quickly. But we have, through different programs, we've had the Expedia Code Academy, where we taught internal people, like non-technical people, how to code and things like that to kind of bridge that gap between the non-technical and the technical folks, especially product managers and engineers, for example. And then we have, the Instructor Academy, where we had to use our internal people to teach those classes, and so we needed to teach them how to teach, so having a certification program. But then getting to your point is really, over the last year, COVID hit, obviously. Expedia is a travel company. We got hit very hard in COVID. Are still coming out into recovery that way. And so in 2020, we decided to build a basically like a taxonomy. It is a skills framework for each one of our job roles within the tech families. And what this did, though, is it not only listed out the skills, but it listed 4 different levels of those skills, because not every single engineer needs to be an advanced they don't need to necessarily know natural language processing at an advanced level, but they may need to do it at a beginning level. And so that's where we are thinking is if we can keep that taxonomy, for as a different term, if we can keep that taxonomy going and keep it at kind of a little bit of a higher level, but have some detail, we can move our people. So in other words, in our skills framework, we do not specify a language, for example, but we do specify like OOP, for example, or object-oriented programming, because different languages will come and go, and so we kept it at that level so the principles are there. So our thinking in the future is if we can continue this progress towards skills and understanding where our people are, and not just expecting them to be at an advanced level, and understand where their gaps are, that's when we can help them and really advance our company.
It's fascinating. And it gets right into the, you're going to learn so much from this. The question of how do others benefit from that learning. Mike, maybe I'll put you on the spot. You are our friend here from the higher education industry. When you hear what is happening at Expedia, how do you think about how that learning can get applied across the rest of the industry? How can some of the entrepreneurs and companies here learn more about what are those skills taxonomies that they need to be teaching to in order to help people succeed at a company like Expedia?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating question. We typically come at it on our side with more of the students are coming to us with lots of goals in their life, right? They have different things that they want to accomplish. How can we map what we have as parts of our curriculum, our degree programs, our certificate programs, the skill building that we have available to what they're hearing at a place like Expedia or other places? So we try not to, as much as I would love to have a taxonomy too, I think it's a hard question. It's not a question where we start. Just to give a little bit more background so people know, you gave my titles. But one of my responsibilities previously when I was Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences is overseeing our extension school, which is allowing people to upskill from a degree point of view, our certificate point of view. We have professional development programs. I had been part of our edX efforts in that space too. So it's everything from individuals saying, I want a particular skill, to companies and enterprises saying, how can we take our entire workforce or a piece of our workforce and trying to play across all of those pieces. And we look at them as partners. I mean, we don't have all the answers.
And Mike, given the edX acquisition, I'm assuming you're buying the drinks for all of us after the panel today. Because you got a big cut, right?
I stepped off the board before that point, but.
To go a little bit deeper on the higher education element of this, Sergey, you both built classes that are taught through higher education. You've been an entrepreneur and brought kind of the private industry space into education. How do you think about what should be done in kind of a nonprofit element of this, and what can private enterprise bring in? And given that you've got something new going on, kind of what excites you about this space?
So I focus on machine learning, and that's such a rapid moving field that the tools available to people actually change, like not even yearly, but sometimes monthly. And because of that, I guess the job has left behind the fundamentals. Like Rebecca was saying, there's the fundamental, linear algebra is the fundamental for what Expedia does to match people to flights. But in machine learning, that's also true, but the fundamentals are actually a pretty small set. And then the tools used to actually do the thing, that's the largest part of the person's day-to-day experience, and they're changing all the time. So we developed this course called Full Stack Deep Learning, which just aimed to bring people up and kind of tell them about the state-of-the-art tools that are available. It's a combination of hardware, software, and kind of fundamental knowledge. So hardware is GPUs are heavily used, and then even further than that, there's specialized chips that are being developed specifically for deep learning. The software, there's frameworks for deep learning. There's frameworks for managing data, labeling data, deploying the model, training the model, distributing over multiple GPUs or multiple computers. So it's quite like a large footprint. And so, yeah, I guess what I can bring to this conversation is there's like a whirlwind, right, that's going on that's like stirring up a lot of things, and we have to come in kind of behind it and build some structure around it. But it's always going to be this dichotomy, I think. Every year there's going to be new tools coming out that radically change what it means to be a machine learning scientist or engineer. And so you can't just formulate your taxonomy, in 2018 and then keep it stable. It has to keep changing. I don't have the answers, but in the Full Stack Deep Learning program, we saw, hundreds of people from around the world that are working as machine learning scientists or data scientists or engineers sign up. And they taught us about what they do at their companies. They learned what other people do or what we think are best practices. And that kind of conversation, I think, is crucial. Just having a community, not necessarily within Expedia, but actually across companies or maybe across industry and academia. Just have an ongoing conversation where you don't become a machine learning scientist and that's it. You're actually always learning and you're always part of the conversation.
Interesting. And Dan, and for those who are here, Dan Vigdor, who is the CEO of the newly rebranded Thrive DX after HackerU's acquisition of Cybint last week. Dan, you've been doing this for a decade plus. You've helped thousands of people change their lives. How do you think about the question Sergey just posed of, once somebody goes through your program, how do you keep them engaged? How do you think about whose responsibility is it for them to get that continuous learning? Is that the employer? Is that something that can be brought through your platform in a community basis? Or does it belong to someone else?
Well, first of all, apologies for being late. The last panel ran over. But that's an excellent question. I think the answer is both and everything. I think digital transformation is really what I think is one of the biggest problems of the economy today. And part of the reason we actually acquired Cybint is because they have a SaaS enterprise-level platform that once we train somebody with no skills or little skills into the workforce, and we help them transform from being a nurse or a taxi driver into a cybersecurity analyst, we're going to actually help him throughout his learning continuum and support him throughout his career. So the enterprise-level software that we bought through Cybint will have the capabilities to keep on training those students, our students, and to give employers the answer they need to keep retraining and upskilling their employees. I think that, as Sergey said, technology is disrupting everything, but it's also running. I mean, it's running. It's every 6 months we have to update our curriculums to fit into what's happening and the changes that are happening and to stay relevant. And that's not really the business of Expedia, right? It's not the business of the companies. And so I think companies need to keep doing what they're doing in their business, and they need to bring in the experts to keep on upskilling their present employees. And this is actually a tool not just to benefit the company in terms of having those skills, but also helps retention, helps the motivation, helps the whole energy in the company when you know that that company supports you and keeps on supporting you throughout your career, and not I spent 5 years there and they're going to fire me because I don't know enough, and they're going to hire the next person. And it's really about continuous learning, lifelong learning. And both people and students are changing their mindset. And I think companies are changing their mindset and really starting to understand and to believe and to do about upskilling their employees.
That's great. As you said this, it made me think of some of the partners we work with within Chegg Skills. They are really trying to make this investment with frontline employees of saying, how do we help you build the skills necessary to be qualified for some of the other jobs within our organization. Their struggle has been their own disconnect between learning and development and recruitment, which is the learning and development team may say this frontline worker who we've given now 12 months of training should be ready for software engineering role, but the recruitment team still has something that says, well, we need a 4-year degree. To the entire group, how do you think we start to break those bridges down, right? And actually rebuild bridges where it's not people talking around each other, but them actually connecting so that people, when they learn these skills, are actually placed in or given the opportunity to advance within an organization?
Well, Expedia, when we started, we were a CD-ROM and Microsoft, right? So that's where we started from. And now, of course, we're AWS house and all of that. And one of the things that is interesting to me about your question is if you don't have some sort of scale that people can prove their skills towards, you will never build the bridge between recruiting and learning and development. So in other words, we have to communicate our skills frameworks to them, right? They have to understand them. And we have to say, Universities don't necessarily fit all of these, right? With the students that come out of the universities, we just had 250 graduates, college graduates, join our company as full-time employees. And the gaps are pretty numerous. Like, we found quite a few gaps in our boot camp. And that's the disconnect between us and universities, that I think we have to build better relationships with our universities so that they actually know. But you can't build that relationship without some type of framework. And so, by the way, our frameworks are like if you want them, you got them. I want everyone to take a look at what we've built, because it's not perfect. I mean, we know that there are gaps, and we know that we're gonna have to redo these things in 6 months, but we have to have that out there so that people understand this is what we expect. And then we have to redo our skills frameworks about every 6 months or so, right? So we have that built into the process. But we have to build those better relationships internally and externally to prove. And then all these alternative means of education, we need to keep fostering that. Apprenticeships, internships for people who are on different tracks. Because you know what, when we started, we had quite a few engineers who did not have college degrees. And they're at the highest levels of the company now. And how exciting is that, right? And in some ways, I think recruiting has gone a little bit backwards. And we have to just make sure that we have a lot of possibilities. So we need to be working with those boot camps. We need to be working with those alternative schools, all of that, to keep that relationship going and proving that those people can do it. And the only way we can do that is with a framework.
Yeah, if I could add a little bit to this. I just want to make sure people realize when we talk about institutions and universities, there's really two pieces of it for many institutions, not all institutions, but ours, for example, I'm at Harvard. We have the college program, where I agree with you, right? For many years we have said, you're done with your 4-year degree, you're finished, go ahead, you know, be part of our alumni, we'll celebrate with you, come back for parties and so forth. As opposed to, this is the first step in your learning education, and then there's other part that I mentioned earlier that's really focused on, you're out there, you're in the world, maybe you didn't finish your degree and now you have some time and opportunity to finish your degree, what can we do to help you there? Or you need new skills, or you just want to improve your understanding in this particular area. That's a different part of the university, which I think that part of our university is actually better attuned to what you're talking about, because that's where when we put a program together and we talk about one of our professional development programs, we are out there talking to companies like you and saying, what should this program actually have in it, as opposed to the faculty that are doing our undergraduate program who are looking at it, this is, you know, lifetime kind of skills and so forth, less attuned to, but not separate from what we should be doing to help those students get their first job. So just wanted to make that point.
One thing that came to mind is, as Dan was speaking, should the employer pay for the employee to learn on the job, or is that expected in their evenings and weekends, right? Because a lot of the time, for software engineers, I think you hire them and then you expect them actually to keep up with the field, but not while they're at the company, right? Like just in their evenings, they're supposed to have side projects. Yeah. And some do, right? And maybe they get promoted, and that maybe encourages an unhealthy work-life balance, and maybe, you know, shuts out some people from advancing in their careers needlessly. So actually, one thing we did at Turnitin when I was working in the AI group there, I instituted like 1 day a week for going through this course, like this online course called Fast.ai. And so it's like a Friday. It's okay if you don't get any actual work done if you just keep up with the course. And the course is only 7 weeks, so that was for 7 weeks. So I'm curious, yeah, what do you guys think about that?
Oh yeah, big time. So my mantra has been 20%. We need to give 20% of time. Now, that's excessive, right? But we're starting to get to 10%, and I'm super excited about that. And we're starting that with our grads this year. So what we've done is we've built in, so again, this is coming from learning and development, right, in a tech company, and we're saying we need to give our employees 10%. So what we decided to do, because that was not really well taken by our product groups, and so we said, okay, fine, we're going to use 10% of the time of our grads. So when our grads come into the program, we have a new program this year where the grads come in and they rotate, they go through 2 rotations with 2 different teams over a series of a year. And then at the end of that, they get to choose which team they want to work on, or the teams get to choose them too. So it's this matching process. But in the interim, we get them for an entire year to develop them, and guess what? We got 10%. So that's our start. And that's 10% of their work time that they're spending. And I'm super excited we have finally gotten to a little bit that way.
So just in full disclosure, I actually got my master's degree paid by a company part-time in the evenings. So I do think there's a model out there. There's companies that believe in this. And we're seeing a change right now. I think this is an extremely exciting time because it's not for just individuals like myself who they thought, could be further leader in the future, whatever they thought, to give me that opportunity to do it. But you have the kinds of, I don't know if it's from here, Guild and so forth, that are looking at this and being proactive at the enterprise level for a lot of individuals that didn't have those kinds of opportunities, and give that time and invest in the employee, and then getting actually a commercial return on that, right? Those individuals are then staying with the company, growing with the company. It changes the way hiring is done. I just finished about a year ago writing a case study for the business school on it. So it's a fascinating model out there.
Just want to add that, as we all know, technology disrupts everything. And I think it took a bit of time till it disrupts the higher ed. But it's disrupting higher ed. And I think higher ed is changing. And personally, I think that those people, those institutions that are innovative, that will change quicker, will become the winners. And we're going to have, there's a paradigm shift in education, paradigm shift in actually how we all get educated and skilled. The top companies are hiring people with no degrees, right? Apple, Google, and so forth. And I think that, the quicker we can shift with technology, the better we can serve our communities, our people, ourselves, our institutions. And those institutions that will not shift, I think, will lose out.
So it sounds like there's consensus among this group, which determines it for the world, that there is a need for kind of multimodalities on this. There's a need for change. There's a need to stay nimble, given that the taxonomy will change over and over and over again. One of the things that's been fascinating to me this week in talking with people is a friend of mine said, adult learning and educating people, frankly, even beyond the age of 18, is still the wild, wild west, right? So whereas there's the New England Journal of Medicine that actually helps, publish things that then lead to setting standards of care and how you actually treat a disease, there is nothing that creates that standard of care, and this is what works and this is what doesn't work for different segments of the population in adult learning, right? And any of us who know the space know that the person who graduated high school but never went to college and has been in and out of public services for the last 10 years may have a different set of needs than the person who went to Harvard University and is now 10 years into her career and saying, I want to upskill. But we're all throwing a bunch of different things at both of those people. When you all look at the space, what do you think it's going to take for there to start being, quote unquote, standards of care for how we educate, re-educate the adult population?
So I think that learning theory, we have so many years of it from K-12 education. There are some differences with adults, of course, but learning theory is still learning theory. And I truly believe that. And I think the way, though, that people want the content, the way that they want to learn, can be very, very different based upon their jobs. So, for example, there's a big difference between the way that, and we've done studies internally about this, there are ways that engineers prefer to learn over others that are very different, say, from a product manager or an analyst. We have to adapt to that. So fitting or creating a SCORM package that goes into an LMS is what we know engineers do not want. So an LMS does us no good because they won't go there. It's not where they're working. Where they're working is in GitHub. They are in GitHub every single day. So why aren't we building repos for them and building an excellent indexing system? Great tagging, then they can find the resources when they need them. And it's not at our convenience. We're giving them what they need so that when they need it, in that moment, they can get it. So we are thinking differently about the ways that people work. So we are studying. Data scientists are an interesting group because data science is kind of the one in between engineering and math and algorithms and all of these things and analysis, right? And we're seeing a real merge between between analysis and data science and engineering, machine learning engineering and so forth. We're seeing a blur between those roles right now. And so data scientists are a little bit they're hard to judge. Like we get a lot of really different information from them about how they want to learn. So we have to be more careful about that. Analysts tend to be a little bit more traditional. Right now, that's probably going to change because we're becoming more technical. So what we're trying to do is based on the role, we're trying to better understand where is the best place to put this stuff and in what way do people consume it the best. All using excellent sound learning theory behind it, right? So it's not just technical writing, it's something much deeper than that, so.
Yeah, so I want to take your question in a slightly different direction.
Absolutely unacceptable.
It's too bad. So you're...
It's too bad. It's too bad. I teach at Harvard.
We're professors. We can talk the entire hour. You're out of luck. This is something that I've been very passionate about in terms of right now we're seeing an explosion of opportunities for individuals to advance themselves, learn deeply, and so forth. And rightfully so. We should, where it was a few models out there and you went off and took them. I'm in the process of hopefully writing a book kind of in this space where I believe you understand better when you walk into your doctor's office what he or she is going to do for you and what standards of care exist and whether or not what you're getting is appropriate than when you walk into a classroom, right? And that's just crazy.
Yeah.
So before we even get to a standard of care that we could see across the whole industry, I believe we need to be educating ourselves to be able to recognize, well, this is probably a good educational environment for me or a bad education. And I don't mean pick up a book that says, here how you can do best job of teaching with all the things that you were talking about, as important as they are. But what are the kinds of things that I walk in, this doesn't smell right to me. Or if I'm coming at it and I'm a government leader and I want to put a new benefit in for the population in my area, what should I be looking for? All those questions right now, we don't have good answers for, and that's a ridiculous thing. So
how do we get there?
Well, stories, I think. Back to what Rebecca was saying, start with stories, things that people will remember and go, okay, this is the kind of things that I should look for. These are the other kinds of things. I don't have a book yet, otherwise I'd plug it.
Yeah, I think one of the difficulties is there's no great way to measure learning. So you can do different things, but then you don't know what output they actually produce.
Yeah, I think that, if you're speaking about standards of care and standards of education, I think there's going to be not one. I think there's going to be a few different ways to learn, and especially when you need to learn practical skills. You need to learn practical skills, you need to have an output, right? If I'm a cyber analyst and I'm protecting the company doesn't care what my standard of skill. They care that I protected the company and I defended it. If I need to do some kind of technology or invent something and I invented it, why does it matter what kind of standards I use to learn? And I think there's going to be developed again and again more and more standards. And what's being invented will be disrupted again by new technology. So I think we're just going to have to stay nimble, stay innovative, and keep on changing.
One thing also came to mind. So, yeah, people learn in different ways. It's not quite clear what's best. But one thing is clear, right? Like the impact of one-on-one tutoring. Like that's the one thing that everyone in education, correct me if I'm wrong, agrees is just like the best possible intervention you can make. So I think, especially for these kind of software jobs and technical jobs, apprenticeship, there's not enough of it going on, I think, in companies. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for a more formalized apprentice program where you work, an experienced person works directly with a less experienced person to teach them directly, kind of one-on-one.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about the one-on-one, I also believe there is a huge amount of benefit that comes from being together in a learning experience with others, especially if the topic that you're covering requires you to understand different perspectives, develop empathy, and so forth.
The panel that was here right before us was an excellent panel talking about, approaching diversity, equity, and inclusion. Connect that to this group a little bit. What do all of you see the role of enterprise learning, right? Both the L&D function, but just also how companies invest in upskilling, reskilling their employee population in helping drive more advancement and more opportunity for typically marginalized groups within both the U.S. but globally.
The pipeline is something that the employee pipeline is something that I have been focused on for a very long time. And what we know is that we lose a lot of kids, especially of color, around between the 5th and 7th grade level. And so, at Expedia here, we're thinking about, people coming out of college or alternative routes, but my brain is on those 5th to 7th graders. And so there's some programs that we've done to try to bring kids in with different nonprofits and so forth to get them access. So that's one thing that we're trying to do. And now that we've moved to our Seattle campus, it's going to make it a lot easier. We're there in the city. We'll be able to do more in that space. But here's the thing, too. Again, if you do not have a set of standards, those standards will modify over time for sure. But if you do not have a set of standards or skills, frameworks, whatever, that's my mantra today. If you don't have that, then how would someone of any background tell you what they know? How would you give them that opportunity? And that's where we're thinking. We want to make these skills frameworks available. We want people to see them, to know exactly what is expected, and then we also want to make sure that they have the opportunity to get it. So this is working with students before they ever hit college, right? So that's where our brains are at this point, is trying to get this out there so that kids can start looking at it and go, oh, okay, I can do that. I can do that. They can do a self-assessment on these skills, right? So,
Open AI for skills taxonomy.
Absolutely. But you have to have that framework in order to give anyone, it's the only fair way, right? Right.
Yeah, and I think there's two pieces here that I want to emphasize on this. One of which is, this is still in progress, right? Our extension school does open enrollment, right? Take a couple of courses. You demonstrate in those courses you can do the work, you can get in. Henry Leitner is here, who's led our extension school for many years, if you want to know more about it. A great way to get going. There's more things that we should do it. But from the admissions point of view, which also reported to me when I was dean, getting people to realize that they even should try is a huge and difficult problem that I don't think we still have the right answer to. We see it in higher education. I'm sure that's in many other places today too. And what can we do to help those individuals realize that they should take a chance on it?
So we have over 65% diverse population in our programs. And I truly believe that once we understand that actually that's a population that's going to save and build the global digital skills gap, and that's what's going to help. Because you have to, there's 3.5 million cyber analysts shortage right now. You're not going to be able to take people that are in that subject and move them. You need to have new people that don't have those skills. Skill them and bring them in. And I think the diverse population is the answer for it. And that's what we see in the classrooms. That's what fills up most of our classrooms. That's what also, we still have another 10% who pass our intro course and want to do the extended, but actually can't afford it. So we keep on looking for more ways to help them come into these courses, because that's what's going to help the global digital skills gap, and that's also what's going to make them have generational impact and complete change.
Well, Expedia is looking for them, so you need to be talking to Rebecca about funding these people if they come work at Expedia.
Well, and
Can we have coffee after this?
one of the things too that I'm really excited about at Expedia is our D&I group has increased exponentially over the last 18 months, which is now starting to make a huge impact in our recruiting and where we recruit from. And that's exciting to me because why were we not recruiting before from, whether it's historic black colleges or wherever, right? We were not looking to those places for recruiting in the past, and now we are. And so when I looked at the 250 grads that came in, wow, the most diverse group of grads I've ever seen come into Expedia. Super exciting, but here's the thing. The recruitment is not the end. We have to support them once they are with us. We cannot let them go. And so our thoughts are right there, working with our D&I group to make sure that we are giving them what they want and need to stay, because guess what? We're a global company. We're travel. We need their views. We need to understand their perspectives, but we have to give them a voice. And I don't care what level they are, right? And so that's where our brains are in working with our new D&I group, is really understanding what we can do to support them as well. And we don't know everything yet, so we're learning.
That's fantastic. Congratulations, at least on the momentum. We are very quickly running out of time, as we thought we might. I'll throw one more question out. Would love everybody to give your perspective on it. Given we are now wrapping up the couple days at GSV, what makes you most hopeful and optimistic about the future of enterprise learning and how we will approach the skills gap and enable more opportunity? And Sergey, maybe we'll start with you. Not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
I think there's a number of companies that all see the same kind of problems, right? Which is that there's a need to, I think there's, the whole time we've been talking, I think there's actually two different meanings of upskilling, right? There's taking people not in the role that they will eventually be in and then getting them to that role, that new role. And then there's taking people who are already in the role that they want to be in and just making sure that they keep up with it. And those are two separate things, but there's a lot of people working to address both. And I think, I'm going to go back to what I said about having a conversation. I think being able to connect people in the role with people at other companies or at universities that are studying that role, and also being able to connect people not in the role, maybe in an apprenticeship type of relationship with people in the role. I think that's really key, just like one-on-one connections between people. That way we can all keep up with the whirlwind of like things changing, and also try to get people over to the roles they want to be in.
I just want to say how lucky I am and how grateful I am because of this opportunity, right? It's not only that I have an amazing job, but my job is to create jobs and opportunities. It's the best place to be, and I got it even more after these 2 days. So really just, thank God, very grateful.
So I'm energized every time I come to this summit. It's amazing. I'm also optimist. I'm an eternal optimist, but I'm optimistic about the future in this space. Again, I know mostly higher education. I've watched our institution go from a real focus on our degree programs, our younger students and so forth, to a realization that we were actually educating more people each year through our institution in our non-degree programs. All these things that are connected to both types of reskilling that you're talking about. And that is now foremost on the institution's mind. It's not we're going to give up our degree programs. Our college is still going to be extremely important. But we care now deeply about doing that education mission broadly. And I think many of our peers are the same way.
Bring us home, Rebecca.
I'm super optimistic because I've heard so much talk about skills. I feel like maybe we're starting to get to the point where vendors are going to start producing what we need. We cannot produce enough internally. We need startups. We need people building, and I'm not talking about a training that links to like one skill. I'm talking about leveled skills. We need that. And so this, I feel like we're very close. And so working with a couple of the startups here, I'm seeing some really great progress in this space. So I'm super happy. This has been a great experience. And at least people are listening to us too, so that's really great too.
Amazing. I am most optimistic about the OpenAI for taxonomy that Rebecca is going to start for the world. Thank you all so much for being here. We are exactly at time. I cannot say how much I appreciate all of your insights and thoughts. Thank you all for coming and joining us.
Thank you.
Have a great time.